Hey guys, how's it going? Today we're going to continue our series on English grammar. Focus on this lesson, concentrating on the expressions too much, too many, and a lot of. There's going to be a few instances in which you would use one and not the other, so I would like to kind of discuss the rules around that. So now if you look at the title, I've got bad versus good with nouns. What I'm trying to do is establish positive and negative relationships with a noun, meaning when I'm speaking about a noun, specifically a thing or a person or a place in a negative context, I'm referring to it as bad. I'm just throwing it in that category. And if, again, I'm referring to a noun, which is a person, place, or thing, in a positive context, I threw that under the good category. So hopefully that just kind of explains this very rough title. But anywho, all right, so let's go ahead and take a look at what's these first two expressions. These fall under what are considered the negative category, the bad category when we're referring to nouns, where I have too much and too many. I've got to figure out a lighting solution. Anyway, okay, so taking a look at the expression too much, you'll notice that I wrote uncountable. So uncountable nouns are simply nouns that are inconvenient or difficult to count. But for sake of argument, we typically just categorize them as uncountable. So things that are very, very small, like if I have salt in a shaker and I pour it out on the table, I could count each individual grain of salt. So technically it is countable. However, it is so small and so inconvenient, and it's not something someone would typically count, that we would just categorize it as an uncountable thing, right? Same thing with hair. Hair, because there's so many of them and they tend to be so tiny, they are considered uncountable. Liquids and gases, various other things you could list, and if you know of them and would like to insert them as examples in the comments, feel free to do so. But just for now, I don't want to create like an exhaustive list of uncountable nouns, but there are quite a few, not limited just to the examples I give. But anywho, so now that we've clarified an uncountable noun, we're going to go back. Okay, so when I use the expression too much, I'm referring to an uncountable noun specifically, right? So I can say I have too much homework, right? And again, when we're using the expression too much or too many, it's in the bad category, meaning the nouns I'm referring to are typically things that I am not in favor of or I do not like in some way. So I could also say I have too much responsibility. How much fun is it watching me write? And I spelled it correctly. All right. Terrible handwriting though. You could also say you have, or for example, you could say you have too much hair. I get to shave my back now. Yay. All right. So looking at too many. So both too much and too many, again, to reiterate my earlier point, refer to nouns in a negative context. So these are things you're not in favor of. These are things you don't like. With too much, it's referring to an uncountable noun. With too many, instead, you're referring to a noun that is countable. And these can typically be things like dogs, cats, people, right? So I can say, so as an example, I could say if I went to the park and I don't like people, I can say there's too many people, right? Oof. Especially when we were all supposed to be social distancing. Anyway. Or let's say I'm on a long flight and I look around and I say, oh my gosh, there's just too many kids, right? Too many kids. Too many kids on a flight, especially one that's 16 hours. Once you see that happen, you jump out the emergency exit. Or maybe I walk into the park and I notice that there are just too many dogs, right? So dogs would be, now keep in mind that when you're using an uncountable noun, you never add an S to the end to create a plural of that noun, despite the fact that you're referring to a multitude or a plurality of the noun. Instead, because it is uncountable, you just leave it as is. Whereas with countable nouns, if you're trying to create a plural variation of that noun, what you would do is you would add an S. So again, uncountable nouns don't end with an S. Countable nouns, you would end with an S. Alrighty, so looking at the opposite of our negatives, so we were referring to nouns in a negative context with too much and too many. So opposite to the expressions too much and too many, which refer to their nouns in a negative context or a bad context, a lot of is the antithesis, it's the opposite. So when it refers to a noun, it's in the positive. So when you use the expression a lot of, again, you're referring to the noun in a positive way. So, you know, as an example, I have a lot of friends, or I have a lot of cats, or you could have a lot of money. And if that's you, call me. So this was just kind of a brief tutorial on the expressions too much, too many, again, referring to their nouns in a negative context. And of course, we have the third expression, which is a lot of, which refers to their nouns in a positive light, so a positive context. Thank you again, I appreciate it. I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording here. Until the next one, you guys have a great day. Bye.